The great spiritual problem is this: you try to be too good, you become too aware, and then you find yourself utterly drained, exhausted. This is the paradox of the so-called awakened life. If you have genuinely seen through the illusion of the separate self, if you have truly glimpsed the unity of all things, then why do you feel so heavy when you step into a room of people who haven't? Why does their everyday drama feel like lead in your own belly? You feel intense, you feel misunderstood, you feel as though your very presence is too much for the common human transaction. You recognize the shallowness, the fear, the endless seeking of validation in those around you. And this recognition, you believe, is what is tiring you out. You are wrong. The exhaustion you feel is not caused by them or their level of consciousness. It is caused by the friction within your own mind. It is the tremendous, unseen effort of maintaining your own spiritual status. It is the ego's final, most subtle resistance. You have secretly designated yourself as the awake one. You have drawn a sharp line between I, the spiritual person, and they, the unawakened people. The immense energy required to keep this line drawn, to hold yourself separate, superior, and sensitive is the very drain you lament. The problem isn't their darkness. The problem is your fear of being diminished by it. We must look at this feeling of being too much, not as a badge of honor, but as a spotlight. It illuminates the fear that you, the vast, free self, could somehow be contaminated or lessened by the simple, chaotic life of another. This is not a moral failing on your part. It is a psychological mechanism. It is your consciousness trying to carry a burden it never should have picked up in the first place. You are struggling with the very thing you claim to have transcended. Separation, the feeling of being too much, simply means you are struggling to be anything at all other than what is. The mechanism of exhaustion starts not with their words, but with your judgment. The moment you secretly designate someone as unawakened, you have constructed a magnificent but costly spiritual prison. This designation is the ego's final, most subtle fortress. It uses the language of consciousness to reinforce separation. This is where the energy begins to leak away. We can observe two immediate traps that consume your vitality. The first is the trap of self-suppression. We call this the dimming lamp. You walk into the room and sense the density. You feel the gravity of their material concerns, their worries, their small dramas. You immediately fear that your own genuine enthusiasm, your insight, your sheer intensity will be unwelcome. It will be seen as odd. You will be seen as too much. So you begin the enormous task of making yourself small. You soften your voice. You choose your words carefully. You deliberately withhold the passionate thought that just occurred to you. You try to lower your internal vibration to match the perceived, dull tone of the room. This is the most direct cause of your exhaustion. It is the spiritual equivalent of trying to push a river back up its own banks. Your nature is to flow. Your nature is to shine. You are trying to convince your own light bulb to lower its wattage to match the moonlight outside. The struggle is between your inner cosmic bigness and your fear of appearing foolish. It takes immense, non-stop energy to push down a truth that naturally wants to express itself. You are spending your life force on an act of self-denial. The drain is not from their low energy, it is from your high effort to suppress your own. You are wearing a spiritual straitjacket. The second trap follows quickly. We call this the secret value. This is the trap of seeking external acknowledgement. You are not just present, you are presenting. You don't necessarily want them to agree with your spiritual views, but you desperately want them to recognize your awareness. You want them to validate the path you've chosen. You are searching their eyes for a spark of understanding. This is a futile exercise. It is a thirsty ghost trying to drink water from a mirror. You are attempting to control the reflection of yourself in another's mind. You want them to see that you are deeper, that you are more evolved. The energy expenditure here is the constant, subtle checking. It is the inner dialogue of, why don't they understand this simple thing? Why are they so stuck in that tired loop? This effort is a form of spiritual begging. You are asking for the security of your own identity to be handed to you by the very people you have deemed incapable of understanding it. It cannot give you what you seek, because the self you are asking them to validate is, in fact, an illusion, the special spiritual ego. The moment you cease to require recognition, your energy becomes boundless. The moment you need them to see your light, you are handing them the dimmer switch. Your exhaustion is simply the energy wasted in this futile fishing for a compliment from an oblivious fisherman. The exhaustion deepens as we fall into the next trap. This is the third subtle energy drain. We call it the burden of the bridge. This is the trap of forced teaching or converting. When you recognize the light in yourself, there can arise a powerful and well-meaning urge to share it. You feel responsible. You tell yourself you must be the light for them, or help them see what you have seen. This transforms simple presence into a task. It makes your being a spiritual missionary effort. The underlying assumption is that you are somehow ahead of them on a path. You are now the spiritual savior, tasked with dragging the other person up to your supposed level of consciousness. You begin to work on them. You offer unrequested advice. You interpret their situations through your spiritual lens. The fallacy here is absolute. You cannot open a flower by pulling on its petals. Growth is an internal process, perfectly timed by the universe itself. The illusion that you are a spiritual bridge or savior is a great weight. It is the weight of an entire world you imagine you must carry. The resulting exhaustion is the expenditure of unrequested effort. It is like trying to carry a sleeping person who doesn't even want to be moved. Your energy is spent on spiritual busybodiness, trying to tidy up the universe when the universe is perfectly well and messy on its own. Then we encounter the fourth and perhaps most insidious trap, the projection of chaos. This is the trap of internalizing their resistance. When you are intensely aware, you feel the ripples of other people's confusion, their resistance to change, or their internal drama. You perceive their psychological noise, and you absorb it. You forget that their chaos is not your furniture. You begin to take their state as a reflection of your own. You treat their anxiety as a threat to your peace. The energy drain comes from treating their temporary turbulence as a fundamental threat to your infinite nature. You are confusing the surface with the depth. Consider the analogy of the ocean and the wave. Look at the wave. It is in chaos. It is crashing, rising, struggling, and dissolving, and dissolving. That is the personality, the ego, the drama of the so-called unawakened person. It is turbulent and loud, but you, the awakened self, are the ocean. You are fundamentally unaffected. The wave's commotion is not a threat to the ocean's depth. The ocean simply allows the wave to be. It is made of the ocean, and the ocean is not exhausted by its creation. The exhaustion comes when you, the ocean, forget your nature and start identifying with this single, crashing wave. You worry that the wave's impending crash will somehow damage the entire sea. This is the moment your energy leaves you. You are struggling to stabilize a wave when you should simply be the vast, silent, stable water beneath it all. The ocean doesn't try to fix the wave. It is the wave. We have observed the traps. Now we must examine the source of the friction. The mechanism is the internal civil war between two competing notions of yourself. There is self-A. This is the deep, aware self. The self that knows everything is one. The self that is the universe expressing itself as you. This self is effortless and boundless. It is never exhausted. Then there is self B. This is the resisting ego, the spiritual persona, the self that insists on being special, the self that needs to be more awakened or more peaceful than the person next to them. This self is a construction of thought. It is the label you wear. The exhaustion you feel is the energy required to maintain the wall between self A and self B. It is the effort of upholding the label of awakened. The external unawakened person is merely the mirror that triggers this conflict. Their simple, messy presence threatens the fragile boundary of self B. You are struggling against your own desire to be free and your desire to be seen as free. You want to be the self that is beyond judgment, but you are still constantly judging yourself against others. This judgment, this internal argument, is what saps your strength. True energy, the effortless vitality of the universe, is not about doing or resisting. It is about allowing. This is the core Taoist principle of Wu Wei, or non-action. It does not mean lying still like a stone. It means acting in accordance with the flow of things. When you try to suppress your passion, or when you try to elevate others, you are practicing Wu Mang, or frantic action. This is exhausting. It is the effort to swim against the current. The danger lies in spiritual identification. When you identify with the label awakened, you create a counterforce. The label is heavy. To uniform, you struggle to keep clean in the presence of mud. You worry constantly about staining it. The truly free person wears no uniform at all. They simply are. When you stop trying to be the enlightened one, you simply are the light. This freedom is effortless, and therefore it is the person who feels exhausted around unawakened people is not exhausted by the others. They are exhausted by the tremendous, unspoken effort to maintain the difference. The moment you drop the label, the energy returns. Your feeling of being too much dissolves the moment you cease trying to measure the muchness. You are neither too much nor too little. You are simply this. The external world only drains you when you use your energy to hold it separate from your inner world. The moment you welcome the chaos of the unawakened person as part of the total, messy, beautiful reality that you are, the struggle ends. The Tao is not just the path of the sage, it is also the path of the fool. The resolution to this peculiar exhaustion lies entirely in non-resistance. You must stop trying to use your awareness to create an exit from the reality before you. The way out is the way through. You must integrate their unawakened state into your own reality, not as a problem to be fixed, but as a crucial feature of the whole. They are not a separate species. They are simply you, playing a different, wonderfully intense part in the single, ongoing dream of consciousness. The awakened self is not something standing apart from the unawakened self. It is the awareness that contains it. It is the field upon which all these temporary dramas are played out. To return to the ocean. The ocean does not resist the wave. It embraces its entire turbulence as its own spontaneous expression. The moment you realize that their suffering, their confusion, their clinging to the small self, is simply the universe doing its thing in that particular manifestation, the burden lifts. You are no longer responsible for their script. You are only responsible for your own presence. Stop trying to use your light to change the darkness. Simply be the light. Let the light be so bright that it cancels the shadow, not by fighting it, but by utterly consuming it. This is the non-dual lesson of Zen and Taoism. There is no other side to get to. You are already there. The feeling of being too much dissolves the moment you cease the protective, self-aggrandizing act. You are protecting an illusion, this special, spiritual ego. When you drop the pretense of being more, you become everything.